day 6. Three, two, one. Greetings. Welcome to day 6 of 30 Days of Halloween. Today I'm going to do a little tarot reading with you. So if you're not into tarot, you might want to check back tomorrow. But you're welcome to stay, of course. It's a simple, I'm going to do for you today 6-card reading. This is, I think, during the month I've already mentioned before, those of you especially who follow my tarot videos. During the month of October, my practice is to use the Santa Muerte tarot. It's the Los Scarabeo tarot. I love it. I really do love it so much. Santa Muerte, of course, is the Queen Death. I think that's who she is. It has to do with, it's the Book of the Dead. It's about the Book of the Dead. Messages from the ancestors through the tarot. It is based pretty much generally on a Rider-Waite version, the same kind of suits and setup, major and minor arcana. The addition of the ancestors, a little bit of a twist to the cards. I think it's more in shadow. It tends to read more in shadow than a regular deck might. And in addition, the little book that comes with it offers a message from the dead, which I like that a lot. I really like that a lot. So today I thought, this month, coming up to the veil, I'm getting really involved in connecting with my ancestors, particularly. We do that my husband and I, that's a part of our major practice here at this time of the year. We have an ancestor altar. Our ancestor altar is up most of the year, but we do extra things at this time of the year. If you saw my other days so far in this series, this 30 Days of Halloween series, you might have seen me cooking a dish to honor my father, Tipsy Betty. I call the dish, which was really delicious. By the way, it was really delicious. We're still eating it. We're still eating it. It's really good cold too. Warm was good, but cold is good too. But I just was thinking a little bit about, before I get into the reading, this idea of, at this time in my life, I'm so connected with my ancestors, probably because, we're getting to the point now in our lives. I'm a crone. My husband and I, our parents are deceased. We're the oldest people in the family. Not in the extended family, not in my family, really, literally. I have a brother that's older. But you know what I mean? Our children, we don't have any generation. We're the oldest generation. So I guess we connect very much. We're starting to really connect with the ancestors. But also thinking about what is our role to pass on to the generations to come. And I've sort of added that as a little twist in this spread. I got the spread somewhere on the internet. I'm sorry to say I don't know from whom. But I'm giving a little bit of a twist to it and saying, what it has to, in connection with the generations that come beyond me, how I'm going to carry what I know from my ancestry forward. So it's a little interesting spread. The other thing I wanted to say, I just wanted to point out, this time of the year, I said October, the beginning of October, it was my father's birthday, the 3rd of October. He would have turned 98. So, of course, very much in October, I think about him. He's in my thoughts. My grandmother's very much in my thoughts, particularly at this time of the year because of the whole idea about her cooking, the apples and the pumpkins and things, magical things she did with all of those things. And then, of course, our oldest child was born at the beginning of November. So here I am in the verge in October, in the middle of my father and remembering my ancestors before me. And then when we turn into November, get into next November, And the celebration, the family celebrations that comes with those months, the winter months, begins with my daughters, my oldest daughter, our first child, the celebration of that generation. Very interesting to me. Okay, I don't want to make this long. I apologize. I'm having some people, I know you're enjoying these videos, and I appreciate you telling me, and I know that even suggestions are given in with the whole heart and sincerity. And I do realize that some of my videos are just too long. I, that's just who I am. I don't know what to say. I'll try to throw in some quickies in between, but you can always stop it and come back another time. And if it's not for you, you don't ever have to come back to it. Just stop it. Anyway, this is a 6-card reading. I'm going to change my camera so that you can see the cards. But just so that you know, we're asking, and of course when I was shuffling the cards, I was asking the cards about the role, where the presence of the ancestors in my life right now, and what kind of things I inherited from them, what kind of traits I inherited, what kind of skills I might have inherited, what I'm carrying, what I do without in my life at this time, and then of course how I carry it forward. So I'm going to just turn the camera and give you an idea of my cards. Look at my cards. I see I have a little bit of glare over this card at this time. I'm going to have I'll add a photograph of the card down in the corner so you can get a better look at the card. But this card here at the top is the card that we're going to begin with. And this card represents how the ancestors are playing a role in my current life. And I found this very interesting. Oh, first I wanted to say that the first 3 cards, 1, 2, 3, came out when I dealt them in reverse. And I know I have said to you before, I don't normally read in reverse what the cards are, but I consider it. I try to keep it in mind. I thought it was very interesting that the major arcana cards were the ones that were in reverse. The minor arcana cards came out upright. That was kind of interesting. Also, that I have 3 major arcana cards to begin with was also very interesting. But remember, that doesn't mean the opposite. It doesn't mean the opposite at all. But there is a little twist to it. But I'm very seriously looking at what this guidebook here wants to say about the cards, because like I said before, I believe the card reversal sort of means, for me, generally means maybe in shadow. And since this deck reads in shadow for me anyway, there's cautions built into the cards for me that that's not a big issue with me about it being reversed. I just thought I would point that out to you, that you know. But I think I have a very accurate reading here. Anyway, the Empress in this instance, and now you'll be able to see from the close-up, it's different than some of the Empresses in some of the other decks that you notice, because, first of all, these being skeletal people, for the most part, the dead, the ancestors of the dead, she's not represented as being pregnant, even though there is pregnancy in the deck. Here we see Santa Muerte herself. The skeletal figure is a pregnant skeleton. Pregnant skeleton lady about to give birth. There's her little crib. Okay. So, but in this case, the Empress is not pregnant. Doesn't look pregnant. But look at the fertility around her. All of the fertile, the beautiful garden is still the same. The flowers everywhere. And she's beautiful. In the deck, even though these are skeletal people, they're absolutely beautiful. You can see the beauty of them without their outer physical characteristics that they were present when they were alive, which is one of the charms of this deck, that you see their essence, the beauty of their essence, rather than their physical beauty of their skin, superficial skin. The Empress still in this deck represents fertility and abundance, but it guards against, it says that impulsive actions that will bring results that do not last, and I think this is so true in my life. that you have, everything is a season. For everything, there's a season. Um, it says to plan, the ancestors say, plan rationally in order to let what you have desired bloom in your life. Okay, and avoid indecision and avoid laziness. If we talk about this about my life, that's sort of true. And I even said the other day, I have had periods of time where I get terrifically depressed. And I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm not trying to make light of someone who has a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis of clinical depression. I do not have that. I'm speaking of the depressed feelings and the depression that happen to many of us that, I don't require any medication or anything to have passed. It just passes for me. So what kind of depression you want to call that, you may. But for me, it represents, indecisiveness, fear to go forward, or unwillingness to go forward. And that happens to me a lot. And when that happens to me, I am not creative. I have no creativity. I'm not producing anything. I'm not capable. I can hardly be capable of making a sandwich. I just don't even want to make a sandwich. I'm not interested. Or, usually I'm somebody who's very interested in recipes and trying different things. Once I can work through that and use my creativity and help myself work through that, it blossoms in me. And that's sort of the Empress representing to me this idea, which is something that I got from those who came before me. My father was an architect. My father was a builder. My father was an artist. He made so much beauty in our lives. My mother, did needlework and sewed and made beautiful clothing, and she was, she just had so many, expressions. She was a teacher and shared the joys of life with people so readily. And both of my grandmothers were very creative people, doing needlework and cooking and sewing and loving and baking and just all of those wonderful things. So I come from this idea that, it's sort of this um, busy hands or happy hands or whatever, or, that this is how we are. To live our life to its fullest, we are creating something within that life. We're not made to just sit and stream Netflix. I do stream Netflix a lot, but I also realize that if I do nothing but that, if I'm not making or creating or doing, I'm not enjoying. So this whole idea of how important the ancestors are in my life, it is based on what I have received from my ancestors. My grandmother's knitting needles, my grandmother's doilies, my father's paintings that hang in my home. You know, it's a part of who I am. It's a part of who I am. They are inside me. Okay. The other idea that I had about this card was I wanted to say this is such a timely card for this to come up because I'm a crone, and I used to when I was younger. I think I even wrote about it in my blog at one time. Have an issue about being a crone at particularly sometimes like Beltane when we're talking about when the goddess is the talk about the triple goddess of the maiden, mother, and crone. We talk about the goddess being in the maiden form and how we can identify all the fertility things that go on in Beltane and the whole idea of being young and fresh and skipping around in the fields and that's not what a crone is all about and how difficult it is for crone. And then going through the mother stage, and then after a while, when you menopause sets in, your childbearing years are over. What are you left with? You're a crone. Where are you in the scheme of life? Where are you in this garden? But to know Wicca, for instance, is to know that the god dies at this time of the year. The god is sacrificed into the earth only to be born again at Yule. He will be born again at Yule, and he will live. He will be born again at Yule because of the crone who holds his seed. She's not a young maiden. She's not a mother. She is a crone holding that seed. It is that rotten apple in the garden, or rotten tomato that I talked about, that has to get so ripe, it's all wrinkled and pruny, before that seed can be ripe enough to harvest from the tomato and ferment and dry and save until it can be planted again. and grow again in the spring. The crone plays a very, very important part in the harvest. So the fact that this deck takes the crone, the empress, and makes her a skeletal beauty, but still a skeleton, not pregnant, that you can visibly see, but yet very much pregnant, holding the seed within. I really like that about this deck. Okay, moving along, card 2 is represented by the Strength card, and that's a very, very colorful, beautiful Strength card. Um, Again, skeletal man wrestling a dragon. He's actually wrestling a dragon, unlike a lion. The woman wrestling the lion. It is about inner courage. This is something that it says a skill I have from my ancestors. It talks about that strength that is inside, not so much a physical strength outside, but inside. You know, I think the expression is I come from hardy stock. We're healthy. We're not afraid to get our hands dirty. We're not afraid to develop our intelligence and to use our intelligence either. It's not all just hard work. It's intelligence. It's using reason and rationale and the ability to communicate, which makes us strong. Okay. The what is lacking for me in this card perhaps might be self-confidence. And I noticed that here we have the man in the card wearing a mask. He's wearing the mask of a warrior, but what is his face without the mask? Does he need the face of the warrior, the mask of the warrior? He puts on that persona of someone who is strong. We all know that. Is he acting the strength or does he have the strength? You need to, in order to have the strength, you must have the self-confidence. If you lack in that, you will not be able to, have the strength to overcome. You have to believe in that inner strength that you have within you. Okay? And you have to accept whatever challenge is offered to you. And this is something that was given to me by my ancestors so easy. I learned this lesson so many times from, watching other people acting, whatever needs done, just doing. Just dealing with it. Just dealing with it. Accepting whatever challenge comes. Trusting on what you build and learn in order to attain what you desire. They wouldn't give up. My father would build a wall. If it wasn't right, he would tear it down and build it again. He wouldn't just give up and let it fall. He would keep at it. He would keep out, but he would persist until it was what it should be. My mother was an incredible strong woman for someone who wasn't even 5 feet tall. She was such a tiny, tiny woman. She nearly disappeared before she passed away. She was so tiny. She kept getting smaller and smaller. And but she was a tremendous strong woman with a tremendous, will. And she did so much. She accomplished so much. She was the first married woman in 1956 to be admitted to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. They didn't allow married women in college. She had children, but she waited until I started school, old enough to start school, and then she started college, and she became a very highly educated woman, very highly, many degrees, a sought-after educator, but at the same time, she kept house. She was a wonderful mother. She polished her shoes. She baked her cookies. She did everything. She was a wonderful wife, good friend, good neighbor, good daughter-in-law, good sister, good daughter. She had tremendous inner strength. Whatever needed done, she did. And I have that skill that I got from my ancestors. I just need to remember it. I need to remember it. And one of the ways I can use it is to fight what it is that's around me, is using this creativity that I have, also this gift of creativity that I have received. And except, looking for creative ways to solve the challenges that I find around me. And that is something that I think I do. That is something I think I pretty much do a lot of. The third card in this reading is Temperance. And here we have, of course, the card of Balance. Oh, who laughed? Did anybody laugh when they saw this? If you've been listening to me at all, I've been carrying on something fierce through September and October. This is the time I have to get in balance. I just, if I'm not, I get so, get knocked off my feet very easily. I'm seeking balance at this time all the time. And here we have the Temperance, and she is telling us that she is there to heal us. She is there to heal us. There is somebody there to heal us. There is something from me, a trait I have from my ancestors there for to heal. I got that from them. I got that creativity to come up with a way to heal, the skill, the inner strength to come with a way to heal, the patience maybe to come with a way to heal. The card forces us to find the middle ground. Yes, I have this, as a triple Cancer, I have this tendency to swing from high, low, high, low, high, low. I'm very emotional and I take things very personally. And, I can be a very bitter, sad, sappy woman. I know that. But this forces me. I always come back. I always swing back. I always come back. I have that trait, that familiar trait that brings me back, knowing what I have to do to get myself in balance. I know I need to be in balance. I seek it out deliberately. I say it all the time. People are tired of hearing about it. People are tired of hearing about it, but it's just what I do. It's what I do. It's within me. Okay. The bottom three cards, 4, 5, 6, respectively, have to do with well, first of all, we have them in the minor arcana, which is interesting. Minor arcana. And we see here we're dealing in pentacles and swords. So we're dealing in mostly pentacles having to do with, my earthly possessions or things that I have. It could be my family, my relationships with my family. Then we have swords, which I find interesting because my swords card is my message card. We'll get to that in a minute. But here I have pentacles, the 6 of Pentacles to begin with, representing, answering the question, so the ancestral lesson that I carry and that I'm going to carry forward to my children, to my grandchildren. Okay? And this is the 6 of Pentacles, which is all about the card of giving and receiving. And boy, howdy, this is really so spot on for me, because this is something that I believe in so wholeheartedly. And I have seen this in my family so many times, and I try to teach this to my children, that, sometimes things are going to go really, really well, and sometimes things are not. That is life. Life, nothing ever stays the same. Sometimes it's a time you have plenty, sometimes it's a time you have nothing. And you have to be okay at both times. You can't get so happy and so full of conceit and greed that you forget about the times that you had nothing. And at the same time, when you're down, you cannot get so absolutely full of yourself and sad in your situation that you forget to enjoy life and forget to love the people around you. That's a real hard lesson for people to learn, but it's absolutely vital. It's absolutely a vital lesson that we learn. This card tells me that I am in the presence of this pendulum, a giant pendulum that is going to swing constantly between positive and negative, positive and negative. And it can make my situation unstable. It can bring back stability into my life. So it tells me to keep focused on what I'm doing. Try to keep myself in balance. Try to keep focused on what I'm doing and know when to move and when to stand still. That's a lesson that only comes with experience, but it's something that I've seen the patience. I used to when I was a younger woman and I was trying to learn to bake bread in the days when you were really supposed to knead your bread all the time. It says knead until finished. Well, I used to knead till my arms got tired, or I would knead until, you know, I would set the clock. If it said 8 to 10 minutes, I would set it for 8 minutes, and when the timer went off, I would stop kneading. And I got mixed results on my bread all the time. But remembering when I saw my grandmother do, is it done? She wouldn't stop until it was ready. I would say to her, how long do you have to do that? And she would answer, until it is enough. You just know when the time is right. You know when the time is right. Okay? Keeping a focus. You're going towards a goal, you're working towards a goal, and you find yourself taking one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, two steps back. It's easy to get frustrated. But as long as you keep your eyes ahead of you on the road and watch where you're going and work steadily towards your goal, you're going to find you get there. You do get there. You do get there. Because there's a time when the pendulum swings, and instead of taking two steps forward and one step back, one step forward, two steps back, you're taking two steps forward, one step back. It swings. Two steps forward, one step back. You're still going to get there. Okay? The next card number 5, Pentacles, talks about how I can deepen my connection to my ancestry. Well, I see that in a couple of different ways. I see that by, I think what's happening is, as you get to be a crone, particularly, I'm starting to I remember a lot of times when my ancestors were young, were alive, my relatives, my parents, my grandmother. I remember when I was a young girl, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, especially in the summer months when my mother was in school, and during the day, and I'd hang out with my grandmother. And she just kept busy. We didn't sit and do nothing while I was with my grandmother. She just kept on with her day, and I participated in her day with her, which was fine, which is fun. We had some time for fun and some time for work. And I remember one day getting in the car with her, and she really didn't say where we were going, and we took a ride, and we ended up going to a home that apparently was her sister's, one of her sister's homes. I knew she had 2 living sisters, and I was very familiar with one of her sisters who had a farm that we visited a lot, who I loved. She was the original cat lady in my family. I loved her cats and her barn cats and her geese and her cows and her horses and her pigs, and she had the most exciting, wonderful home, and I just loved spending time with her. But there was another sister, a younger sister, who they didn't talk about a lot. I knew that, my grandmother would mention her, but we really didn't know her. She didn't come to family reunions and things. Well, it ended up we were at her home that day, the home of her husband and her, where she and her husband lived. And the house was unlike houses I had seen before. It was very old and very run down. It didn't have indoor plumbing. It had an outhouse. Not too terribly unusual for a rural town, but most people had indoor plumbing, at least crude indoor plumbing. This would have been in the 50s, 1950s. But she did not have it. She had an outhouse. I don't think they had electricity in the house either. I think they still had gas lights. I'm not sure. But at any rate, my grandmother was there because she was going to wallpaper. She was going to put up some fresh wallpaper and hang some fresh curtains in her kitchen. And I was going to help her. And it was a lovely little day. It was a lovely day we spent. Got to know this sister a little bit, who I did not know. And I helped my grandmother. I learned a little bit about wallpaper, maybe. A little bit about curtains, maybe. I don't know. But I learned a lot about charity. I learned a lot about kindness. She didn't go in there and act like she was doing this woman, her sister, any favors. She didn't brag about it to anybody. She never spoke about it outside that I heard to anybody other than that. When my mother came to pick us up, to pick me up at the end of the day, she didn't say to my mother, "Oh yes, we went down and helped my sister and fixed her house. The one that lives with a deadbeat, they don't have any money." She didn't say a word about it. She just quietly did this loving, kind act for her sister, who was terrifically grateful, you could tell. I always remember my grandmother doing that, and I think about that. And when I think about this card, this um, Five of Pentacles, whatever has to be done has to be done. It is moving forward. It is moving forward. And there's a time, that we have a time for giving, all of us. We have a time for receiving as well. There's a time when we have things that are tough and it's our turn to receive, and we have to do things graciously. It's both receiving and giving. Giving and receiving is what takes us forward along this path. It's what takes us forward. We're going forward at all times. Okay. Keep calm and carry on, I think the expression is when things get tough. So still staying focused, staying focused. He's got to stay focused to step forward on these goals, doesn't he? Probably be pretty easy to fall. His steps are maybe slow and deliberate, but they're still going forward. Okay, finally, I'm going to say the last message here. This was an intriguing card for me because I said this was the card that is the message from the ancestors, and it is swords. It's the only swords in the spread. And swords has to do with communication, doesn't it? Or thoughts. When I saw this card, I think the first expression that I thought of was, I was thinking about the shaker expression, head to work, hearts to God, because I see him raising a book up, holding the book like at a heart level, and I saw this thing around his head. But I realized the shaker expression is not head to work, it is hands to work, heart to God. Hand to work, hearts to God. But it is still, the thought is very clear. He has a very clear thought in his head here. And the shaker expression, the reason I brought that up is this expression is something that we used to say all the time. Same thing as we used to say. We were not shakers, of course, but there were shakers in Pennsylvania. And I just was very familiar with the expression. Hands to work, hearts to God. The Amish, who I am more familiar with, would say busy hands are happy hands. And what that means is it's hard to get into trouble when you're busy. It's hard to think negative things when you're thinking, when you're busy, It's much easier. That's why a lot of people when they're stressed will just jump into a project. And the Shakers had this another expression that they say is, do your work as if you had 1,000 years to live and as if you were to die tomorrow, which I find that a really very interesting statement, a very interesting thought. And I think really kind of fits in here because we need to carry on. We get, this time during this pandemic that we're having, when people are sitting at home, if you're just going to be sitting at home and a lot of people aren't doing anything. And their excuses for doing nothing is, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to get out of here. I don't know if we're ever going to go back to normal. I don't know even if I'm going to be able to keep the house. I don't even know if I'm even going to have the same job. I don't know if I'll ever get to celebrate Christmas. Whatever it is that they're saying, they're just going to sit and wait and see. But whenever it happens, they're not going to be ready for it because they're doing nothing. We need to keep working. We need to keep preparing, just like things are going to happen. And if they don't, we'll change the plan. We'll change the order of what we've done and do something else. But you have to keep moving. You cannot just stagnate and stand still. And that is the message from my ancestors for me today. Keep moving, because we're going to be moving from what was unfamiliar to what is a new normal, that new normal that I keep talking about. But don't worry about making mistakes, because I'm carrying with me all of the knowledge that I have. You remember, in the Rider-Waite, I think this is the card that there's a boat, and they're sitting there, and they have their backs to us, and then there's a man standing in the back rowing or guiding the boat out across the waters, from the troubled waters to the calm waters. They don't have, and the question comes up all the time in that card of what are they carrying with them? They don't have a lot in the boat. They only are carrying what they probably need with them. This is telling you, this card is saying that you're carrying the weight of the errors that you have made. Okay? But only the errors that you have made, which will enrich you and make you more mature, which will enrich you and make you better, which will enrich you and make you ready for the new normal, whatever that is going to be. That is the way, that is what you carry with you. You don't forget those lessons. You carry that with you. But what you leave behind are the things that don't get you anywhere. Don't just keep rehashing old miseries that you can't do anything about, that don't have anything to do with what you're going to be doing in the future. Leave that stuff behind. Knowing what to take, knowing what to leave. That's the message from my ancestor. Okay? Everything else has to stay behind. You know, when you get to be older, or you're getting, maybe partly it's because I'm getting older, and maybe it's partly because we're in a period where we're spending a lot of time alone or whatever in contemplation. You tend to think about all of these things. You start to have regrets, or I regret doing this, or I regret doing that, or because maybe those things that you spend a lot of time at, now you find you're not going to be able to do. But you can't, some things you just have to move on from. You can't think about it that way. You just can't do that, because then you're going to be stagnant. You're not going to go forward. When the pendulum swings, it's going to knock you down. When that pendulum swings, it'll knock you right off your feet. You got to be steady on your feet. Okay? This was a fun reading for me. I don't know. I think it meant a lot to me. The purpose of the reading for you, I'm not sure. I want to say, whatever you want to do, if this is a good time for you to start asking similar questions of your tarot decks at home, it doesn't have to be the Santa Muerte deck. It can be any deck, your favorite deck. But see if you can get some messages from some of your ancestors. As the veil gets thinner, it's a good time to listen. It's a good time to listen. Let your tarot cards speak to you. Okay? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. I wish you blessings. Yummy. Goodbye.